Hello, guys. Joining me from faraway Singapore, where she was when we held this meeting, is Kate Yanoff. Kate is a B&B host. She's also author of 5 Templates to Master Your Short-Term Rental, an ebook that is available on Amazon. Kate is also founder and CEO of Property Protect, an insurance company that helps short-term rental owners and property managers. Let's listen to Kate. Where are you now?
I'm in Singapore right now.
Oh my word, you're a globetrotter.
Actually, it's a funny question because I'm here today. I'm in Johannesburg tomorrow, and then on Monday I'll be in Iowa in the US.
Oh my word, from Johannesburg to Iowa, whole mileage to cover.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fantastic. Kate, basically, I'll just introduce myself to you. I'm an accountant. I've been in real estate for the last 19 years in the UK, and I do own quite a few properties, bought, sold, rented a few properties. I happened to, per chance, renovate a few properties and wanted somebody to, the estate agents, to rent it out for 3 months for me, and they couldn't. That's how I discovered Airbnb. And I've been in the Airbnb rental market for a long time. So I'd just like to find out a bit background about you, your journey in the short-term rental market.
Sure. So I have an interesting journey. I moved to Hawaii about 5 years ago and rented this house on the beach. Yes. And the house on the beach had a pretty lackadaisical landlord. And I told him, now that I'm in Hawaii, I might travel to Southeast Asia and, bounce around a little bit. And I asked him if it was okay if I rented the house out while I was traveling. And he said, oh, it's fine. Not a big deal. As long as, you take on all the liability for it. And I said, okay, cool. So that afforded me to travel around Southeast Asia for 3 years. And then I ended up purchasing my own condo in Waikiki. And so I had 2 units then at the time. And that slowly kind of created a catalyst for me to buy a house in Austin, Texas. I opened up an Airbnb in central Vietnam. And then another condo in Hawaii early last year. So I've done a couple different hosting styles, not just the investor style or, the room rental style. So I've kind of been around the block a little bit and can speak to each type of hosting. Wow.
That sounds very interesting. How did it come that you were able to geographically spread yourself in such a short time, rented in Vietnam and in Waikiki and also in Texas? How do you, first of all, obtain these properties? And secondly, how do you manage them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So processes are the name of the game in automation. So I learned really quickly when to create guest check-in guides and checkout guides and instructions for my housekeeper. So then I could emulate those with every single guest that came in. And then I started using different tools to help me automate them. I used Guestbook for all my guest communications. I use a Google Drive document that I can check at any time on my phone for all the bookings, like all of my financials. And then I just use the app. Every time I go to a different country, I get a SIM card. I'm always available. I do have a manager in Vietnam that is on the ground there. So she helps a lot with the guest interactions there. Texas and the Hawaii properties I manage myself still. They're pretty easy with all the automations in place.
Oh, I see. So the Texas and Hawaii ones you manage yourself, but in Vietnam you've got somebody on the ground. When you say somebody, it's just one person or you've got a team? Because you have different people doing different things to the property.
Yeah, of course. So I have a manager that mainly deals with the guest communications and checking them in. I have a housekeeper that comes 6 days a week. And then in Vietnam, and then for handyman or fix-up services, we have a little company that we call for Vietnam. In Hawaii and in Texas, I have similar setups. I have a housekeeper and then also a backup housekeeping service, and then handymen in each place. And so all of my places are automated with keyless entry. and Nest thermostats, and pretty simple to kind of get in and have the guests be comfortable, but then also easy to manage from afar.
Fantastic. That is great news. Are you looking to expand anymore beyond the 3 geographical locations you're in? And if you're going to do that, how are you going to be doing it? How are you going to be adding more properties to your portfolio?
Yeah, it's a good question. My husband is from South Africa. So one of the reasons why we're going to Johannesburg is to kind of take a look at the market there, and then specifically in Cape Town. And then we are looking around the Singapore area. Is anti-Airbnb at the moment, so we can't do anything
Why?
here.
Is it because of regulations?
Yeah, exactly. And the government actually enforced it. They have hefty fines. I think it's $25,000 a night that they'll fine you if you have an illegal listing. So, and they've already enforced it quite a bit with some people. So we're going to look at Malaysia and then also Indonesia, because they're short flights or ferry rides away. Yeah.
So it looks like you expanded. You mentioned Cape Town, and Cape Town is one of the hottest Airbnb markets in Africa at the moment, and they're consistently increasing. And would you be looking to just add a property, or would you be looking to expand or scale your business as an Airbnb management company in Cape Town? Is that something that is on the cards for you?
Probably not a management company, because I already have another Airbnb-esque type of business that I'm running.
Which we'll be talking about shortly.
Yeah, but I definitely would probably be looking at it just from an investment perspective. We're also looking at doing some kind of smaller multifamily types of units next year in the US, where we can rent some of them long-term and some short-term to have a little diversity with our portfolio.
Oh, fantastic. One of the things that a lot of property owners and investors are weighing is whether to rent long-term, medium long-term, or short-term, as we are doing it at the moment. I've been doing the long-term rental for a long time, over 19 years. And I've just discovered that this is fantastic. What would you say to people or homeowners who are still mulling this whole idea over, who are not very used to this industry? What would you say to them is the advantage of renting short-term vis-a-vis long-term rental?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually used a company called Relio to look at some of the numbers to see what the cap rates would be on a long-term versus short-term investment.
Right.
And you're much more hands-on with short-term. Long-term, I feel like you do some maintenance once a year. You have a tenant in there. Hopefully you do good background checks on them. You can even offer some complimentary housekeeping every quarter, just to check in on your place. But it's much more hands-off than short-term. Short-term, you're actually interacting similar to a bed and breakfast or a hotel. Yes. And you also want to keep your standard of your property or dwelling up high, because your business is based on reviews. So you want people to have a good experience. So if you've never stayed in an Airbnb yourself and you're looking to get into Airbnbs, I think it would be wise to stay in one at least first and try it out and see what the different experiences are. But it is much more of a different play. We experience double the revenue a month on a long-term or a short-term versus long-term property. And that seems pretty typical when I've talked to other folks too.
And double the work as well, I guess.
Yeah, depending on how complicated your property is. We have smaller properties, so we don't have large homes, just like 1-bedroom condos, and then we have a 3-bedroom home, a 3-bedroom house. So. Yeah,
fantastic. That is a great answer. Typical yield for property investors, for example, in the UK, European areas is about 8%, and that is really, really top whack. In the US, I know it's similar. So if we have to use the short-term rental income as a measure of yield for property investment, would you say that definitely without a doubt, the short-term rental yields are much, much better compared to long-term rental for property investors?
I would, just because the percentage of recurring income monthly is such a large source in that. I mean, you could probably get 8% just on that alone, let alone the equity value that you're earning in your house. We have one property that I think we're averaging like 20% net, like year over year. So the equity value has increased, plus the net income that we're generating from it monthly is just very strong and consistent. That's different from market to market, obviously. But yeah, I think you're kind of just working off a different animal where you're putting in sweat equity into the short-term rental a lot more than the long-term.
Yes, yes. Okay. A lot of hosts who will later on be listening to us are very concerned about the involvement of homeowners or hosts in managing the whole process. First of all, the management of the booking, guest communication, check-in, check-out, cleaning services, and most importantly, the reviews that come. After all that work is done, it hinges on one person just writing one sentence, and you're either up or down. How do you manage guest reviews? Or how do you manage these reviews? Because it all hinges on one person, one short sentence, and you're done as a business.
Yeah. It's a very vulnerable spot as a host because, you go out there, you put in the work to renovate your property, or you spiff it up so it's really nice and shiny. Depending on what your minimum nightly stay is, you either get a lot of traffic with overnight turnovers or 2-day turnovers, or, moderate traffic with week or longer turnovers. To answer your question, I think we kind of set an expectation that we're not a hotel, but this is a home and it's equipped as a home, but there aren't specific services like concierge services that we offer. We do offer recommendations and tips. And if there's any feedback they want to give us, we're totally open to receiving that, whether good or bad, because it helps us either way. I think I kind of set a level of expectation with my check-in guide. It's 8 pages long. It gives very specific instructions. Yeah, it gives very specific instructions with pictures and fingers pointing to certain, pictures and, not directive, but just helpful information.
This is only for your check-in guide, though, not for the guest.
Yeah. For the check-in guide for the guest, and at the bottom of it, if they make it through to the bottom, we say, our business is built on reviews. If you have had a good experience, we really, really appreciate a review at the end of your stay. I also check in with our guests like halfway through their stay. So either the night after, if it's a shorter stay, or, a couple days after they've checked in. And then at the end, we also send a check-out guide, which is the day before they leave, asking them just to do some simple things like take the towels and put them in the laundry basket, or throw out the trash. And we'll also ask again for the review. So I think it's just a constant reiteration of, we're looking for good reviews. And to answer the second part of your question, we have had some guests that, maybe their expectations were not met. And I empathize with them because I've been in that situation before. We apologize right off the bat. And if we have to leave a review, to a public review, we acknowledge their, feedback and take it seriously. Some guests, I think, are a little hard to please no matter what you do. And with those, you kind of take the bad with the good. We mostly have excellent guests, and every now and then we'll get, a guest that wasn't as pleasant, but it doesn't make or break our business. I did have one guest in our Vietnam property that I went from a superhost status of 3 years to not being a superhost. And it was because our toilet broke and the bathroom wasn't usable. And so we actually came out of pocket and relocated him to another hotel nearby, but he still left a terrible review, even though we did that. And we refunded him, but there's nothing we can do. And unfortunately, the way that the review system is set up, you're kind of dependent on that, and got to take the good with the bad. And I looked back at it, and I realized, we do everything we can to make this a good experience. And if we don't get super host, then we can't get caught up, because we still maintain really good occupancy rates.
Things I found is just about a couple of months in July this year, I had a couple of people come from Germany. They came from Germany, stayed for 4 days, gave a raving 5-star review. And then another one came over and literally gave a review that was 3 stars. And I wanted to find out why they gave 3 stars. and they said, well, it didn't meet their expectation. 2 days later, somebody comes in from Austria and gives a 5-star review. So here I have sandwich reviews of 5-star, 3-star, and 5-star. So how do you manage that? Because, you know, these 3-star reviews do affect our business, do affect the way people look at the property. How do you manage that? Because I got a bit emotional about it, but then I quickly checked myself and said, look, this is a business, nothing to do with the person. It's their opinion. I can't change their opinion, but at least I've got 5-star reviews before them and after them. How do you manage these?
Yeah, it's hard because when you deal with guests from all over the world, because we do as well, you don't really know what their baseline is of excellence.
Yeah.
And so I think I just go back to, you know, you can't win them all, but we try to do our best every time. And sometimes I've actually called Airbnb and, you know, asked them, and I said, this really isn't a fair review because we delivered on everything we've advertised and the guest just still isn't happy. And so I've expressed my concern to Airbnb about reviews because I think they've taken a lot of heat over the last year, especially about how reviews are affecting our businesses. And so I think they're taking it into consideration, but I also think that, you know, we just have to consistently maintain good communication with the guests. And sometimes it's just out of our control.
People that hosts within the groups mention the difference between superhosts and not being superhosts. I guess you've got a lot of good reviews and probably you're superhost. Do you think being superhost actually enhances the bookability of your property?
You know, I haven't seen a difference, to be honest. I've had superhost status and I've had not superhost status, and I still maintain the same occupancy. So I don't know really if it makes that much of a difference for me personally in our markets, because Hawaii is kind of year-round tourism. It might make a difference for somebody with positioning, but I don't know if it matters for, honestly, I haven't seen a difference.
Kate, you do have a service that you provide. Because we'd like to find out exactly what you do and if it's going to be of benefit to people worldwide in terms of the services you provide, or is it based geographically in the US or wherever? But we'd like to hear from you the services that you're providing within the industry.
Sure. After being a host and experiencing, you know, having guests visiting from all over the world, I had my first claim. And I haven't had any major damage or theft or anything like that. I've been really lucky, I think. And I went through the whole process of filing a claim with one of the booking platforms. And I realized after I went through that exercise of trying to recover the money from the guest damage that it wasn't actually insurance. So that inspired me to actually create an insurance company for hosts. So they do have a layer of protection no matter what when it comes to any sort of guest damage or theft. It's called Property Protect. Yes. And our website, mypropertyprotect.com. We are able to sell policies, which is a property casualty policy. It gives you about $10,000 in any sort of damage or theft coverage. It costs $4 per night, and we have an automated system where you basically just take your booking calendar, you paste that into our platform, and it downloads all your upcoming bookings and puts them in a queue. So as your guests check in, we can issue a custom policy that's tailored to their specific dates of stay. You never pay for nights that you don't have bookings, but it gives you another layer of protection where you might not have it with some of the other booking platforms as they're evolving.
Right. You know, Airbnb, for example, has a host guarantee for $1 million or something like that. And also for other hosts who are doing rent-to-rent, not necessarily them owning the properties, the landlord himself probably has got a property insurance and maybe a content insurance. How do you come in? Because I think in the insurance industry, they still have not been able to get the whole idea of short-term rental insurance. For example, a guest comes in, trips over the floor, falls, or a guest gets punched by the neighbor next door, How do your services, how do they cover all these? Because these are some of the pertinent things that people are concerned with.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Insurance is a very confusing animal. And typically before I got in the insurance industry, I thought it was designed specifically to confuse people. But I think you're right. The insurance industry is archaic. It's coming along as fast as it can. The current carriers don't have an all-in-one product for this type of business model.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different confusion and products out there where it covers liability, but it doesn't cover structural. So if you had a fire, you would be covered if somebody fell and broke their hip, but not a flood or an earthquake. And then there's what we offer, which is a property casualty policy, which is just the interior contents of your dwelling. But there isn't really an all-in-one solution yet that offers everything that is affordable, because this still comes out of your bottom line as an expense. So we are working with a partner that offers liability and structural, but we don't dabble in that world personally. But we can basically tailor make some sort of package between our product and our partners to set people up pretty safely against structural liability plus any sort of theft or damage.
That's fantastic. So if hosts had to find out about your services, how do they reach you?
They can email me directly. We have a Facebook page that's mypropertyprotect.com, or they can just go to our web URL, which is mypropertyprotect.com. There's a little instant messenger chat on the bottom right-hand side, and our team responds to that. We're pretty quick, and we're very empathetic when it comes to insurance, because we've been there and done that too, as we are hosts ourselves. So we understand the pain and the frustration you go through with hosts, and then also with the damage side of, if a guest does something to your property.
Oh, brilliant. So Kate, finally, if you had to advise any would-be short-term hosts who either is a property investor or looking to invest in real estate on the rental side, what would be your one advice to them, and why?
Do it sooner. I was a little skeptical when I first got into it, and I think you learn by doing. You can read everything in Facebook groups or online forums, or downloading different types of classes. But I think you really learn when you jump in. Real estate's one of the most sound investments you can make. A lot of the world's most wealthiest people are wealthy because of real estate. So if there's a way that you can get into it, I would do it as soon as you can. I also would be empathetic and take the host hat off and wear the guest hat a lot of the times, especially when you get feedback, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes I have to take a breath and walk away from my computer when I read a review that isn't pleasant, and then I write it down, and then sometimes I've even sent it to a friend to read before I send it back to the guest, because you're in the business of hospitality, and I think that's what a lot of us lose focus on sometimes. So definitely remember to put the guest hat on every now and then.
Fantastic. It's been great having you. But Kate, the last question, final. Hey, if you were an animal, what animal would you say you are, and why? And how does that affect your business?
I'm a monk seal. I know that already. Monk seal is my spirit animal. Monk seals swim around, and then they beach themselves on a beach and sleep for days. And so I've been known to do property renovations in like 6 to 12 days, and then take a week or two off of just rest and relaxation. Wow. So, and be able to kind of still do business from my phone wherever I'm at. So.
Typical. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Kate, it's been great having you on, and we will get in touch again, and hopefully I'm sure hosts and would-be property investors would listen to this interview and be motivated by it. But more importantly, for people who are already hosts on the market who will be looking for insurance services, I'm sure that My Property Protect will be able to offer those services for them. Thank you so much for having you, Kate.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the interview and opportunity. I appreciate it.